Thanks, Michael. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever applies to all. Really glad you made it. This is the latest in our ongoing series, our bi-weekly cognitive sales webcasts, wherein we always promise all meat, no potatoes. We've got some outstanding speakers today. This is going to be a really good one. So we've got Wes Shofity, who's on the same team as me, North American Geo. He's our cognitive business development executive and ecosystem strategist. That's a mouthful there, Wes. And then we've got, we're delighted to have Chris Frost. And Chris is the cognitive sales manager for ComCSI. Pretty new to IBM, as a matter of fact, so he'll bring a very interesting perspective on how he leverages some of the things you guys are going to be hearing about today. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Wes.
Stuart, thank you so much for the warm introduction. Team, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I think you're really going to enjoy the subject matter. So flipping over to the agenda page, the reason that we're here today is to talk about social selling strategy and how to leverage new tools, applications, and competitive intelligence tools that we have internally to really drive better business results and more meaningful business conversations with your customer. You know, you might be asking, you know, why do I want to do this? Why do I care? Well, the goal of this is to save you time, help you make more money, and help to amplify your sales efforts to make, you know, the time you spend more impactful and more meaningful. So, you know, how are we going about doing this? You know, I would like to introduce a new approach, if you will. And, you know, that's going to be leveraging tools like LinkedIn, HG Data, Bluemine, Google Chrome Email Hunter, and things of the like. Now, I would ask that any questions you might have, we save to the very end of the presentation, and we will address your questions at that time. So moving right along. Now, what if I had a crystal ball? Before you even picked up the phone to call a customer or before you even sent them an email, what if I could tell you what their software install base looks like? And I don't just mean IBM and software or IBM hardware. I mean competitive hardware and software. That'd be incredibly powerful. In fact, for a lot of customers, particularly data center customers, they may not even necessarily know all the different software packages and things that certain line of business customers might be playing with on the side. And, you know, part of this has led to, you know, losing, I guess, some control, or data center folks losing control over all the different business initiatives that might be going on, within their corporation. So the net of me bringing this up is simply to highlight the fact that we have to be a little bit more savvy about how we approach customers these days. And to that end, we also need to be a little bit more prescriptive about how we go about crafting our messaging and making things more relevant than they used to be. Because let's face it, there's a lot of bright and shiny things out in the market these days, and customers don't have much time. So moving right along, I'm going to go ahead and start out with the tools and the links that you're going to need to go ahead and download to take advantage of some of the things that you're about to see here today. So you might be asking yourself, well, how am I going to get information about my customer that's accurate? How do I have faith that I'm not going to be bringing up the wrong things? How do I make the questions that I ask really hit home? Can I do this for any account? How do I find customers' real work email addresses, if I don't have their phone number? How do I go about reaching out to new line of business customers that I may not have line of sight to today? Well, that's the exact, topic of this conversation. And, we're going to get into sales strategy here just a bit. So the reason for doing this, and I love this saying, is, going into a fight armed with positive information, solid information that will help prevent you from wasting your time and walking away with a black eye, right? Customers don't have time to catch you up on their pain points and initiatives that they're working on. It's not like sales were 10, 15 years ago where they have time to take your call just because you have IBM or large company on your business card, right? So this is all about finding ways to work on fixing known business problems to help a customer look good in front of their boss, right? To try to jump ahead, say 2 or 3 sales calls in advance because you're already talking to the customer about problems that they're having with things that you happen to know that are installed, right? And what you're doing here is demonstrating your value and helping to convince the customer as to why they should take a meeting at their busy day to hear what you have to say. And at the end of the day, the point here is really make it count. So, to that end, I'd like for you to give some thought to how your target company might be organized, who might be willing to help you, who you would reach out to via LinkedIn, or who you might do research on to help you move the needle. And, Chris is here today to kind of touch on some of those points. And Chris, I'd like to get some of your feedback. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So I personally think that the organizational chart is the number one tool that I've used in the past to understand organizations, understand who the people are, understand the reporting structure, understand the budgeting structure, right? So my team is going to be focused very heavily on org charts, so discover.org, et cetera. But when I look at an org chart, and for some of the large companies that we cover, you might have 14 PowerPoint slides of org charts. But what I like to do is I like to understand who are our friends, who are our enemies, and who do we need to get in touch with. So if you have to cold call into an account and you understand who their bosses are or who their peers are, it's so much easier to just ask one of your contacts, can you recommend me to X, Y, and Z? Because you know who they are, you know where they are, and you know what they do. So I think org charting is a very important tool that we should be using and leveraging a lot more to understand and build better relationships within our accounts. So taking the org chart, now let's kind of dig into personas, right? I mean, there are different types of people that have different roles and responsibilities that care about different things, and I've been doing a little work getting into personas, and I'm going to share with you that in the next slide. But Wes, what's your point here on the CIO, the CFO, the head of markets, and others?
Well, Chris, I guess where I was kind of going with this was simply that, your C-level execs versus your VPs versus, and moving on to the next slide, versus other IT personas. I think what we find is that you have to craft your messaging a little bit differently based on the priorities and the things that they're concerned about. So as we start to introduce new ISV solutions, come up with new sales plays and new things that we're going to attack the market with, we have to craft our messaging a little bit differently than we have in the past. These are not traditional, say, AIX or mainframe or enterprise class storage sales plays where it's fairly scripted. We're kind of venturing into a new arena, if you will, and as such, we have to kind of be sensitive to the fact that the drivers and the pain points are much different than they have been traditionally in the past for IBM sellers.
And I also think that when you look at personas, it gives you an advantage to go out and create new relationships. Find people within organizations that have never had a conversation or dealt with IBM in the past. And I think there's a lot of them. So if you go on to the next slide, I kind of put together, some basic personas, and I just kind of filled in things that they care about, right? So we all want to have conversations with chiefs, right? Chief marketing officer, chief information officer, chief executive officer, CFO, et cetera. But what does a chief look like, right? What does he or she look like? So I just kind of added some of these different little things to say, well, the chief probably has 3 kids. He has a favorite sport. They probably have a pet. They live in a house. They have a favorite book. They have a favorite movie. They have a favorite color. They have a favorite trade show that they attend. They've got a favorite vacation place. They've got a favorite sport, et cetera. So as you look at these personas, you look at VP Victoria, right? You look at Architect Annie. You look at Analytics Allie. You look at Developer Doug. You look at Storage guy Sal. I think it's just really important that as we build new relationships, we have to understand what is it that they're interested in. What can we give them to teach them about this cognitive message? So the way I look at it is, in order for people to learn, they have to do only a couple things. They have to read. So what are you going to send them to capture their attention? How are you going to customize it to their specific company, to their specific vertical? They're going to have to watch. So what videos are you going to send them? They're going to have to listen. So what audio links or videos are they going to watch and listen to? And then what are they going to attend? So that's really where I want to get to. I want to get our folks building relationships face-to-face and getting these types of people to attend things. So artificial intelligence workshops, meetings, breakfasts, dinners, lunches, baseball games, golf, events. Take them to the Masters. The Masters is a great event. But I really just think that as you understand these personas and you understand who they are and what they care about, you look at business interest. Well, Chief Brody is interested in profit margin. So is VP Victoria. Well, Architect Annie might be interested in decreasing costs. Or Analytics Alley might be interested in increasing revenue. So the reason I put this together is just to challenge everybody to think about, as you build relationships with people that you've never met before, they all have common things. Get them to read stuff that is relevant to them. Get them to watch and listen to stuff that's relevant to them, and attend things and interact with them face-to-face. And I think that'll give you an advantage for cracking open new doors.
Chris, I love those points. Love that. So, moving on, I just want to give a quick snapshot as to what Google Chrome Email Hunter looks like once you've set up the LinkedIn plugins. So this allows for you to actually go out to any customer's LinkedIn page. You don't even have to be connected with them. But if you can just locate them online based on some basic searches, and based on maybe job and responsibilities and key interests, it'll actually populate with the real work email address. So then moving right along, the other big tool that has been really impactful has been HG Data. So I met HG Data last year. They have some very sophisticated software that allows for you to go out to virtually any customer's main landing page and click a drop down to get a full list of their software install base, as well as a significant portion of their hardware install base. Now, in working with them, IBM was so impressed with what we saw. We did some research and found that the information from HG Data is actually 98% accurate, which is pretty phenomenal. And as a result, we ended up acquiring their data set and mixed it into our BlueMine tool for competitive intelligence. So if you look at the very bottom of this drop-down, you'll notice the immediate link to IBM BlueMine. And BlueMine will provide you a wealth of information about the customer's hardware, software install base, projects that they've done in the past, their annual spend, all kinds of information that can help arm you to have a more educated business discussion with your customers.
So Wes, you told me a funny story when you were speaking to a customer and you asked them about a technology and they're like, oh, no, we don't use that anymore. And sure enough, they did, right?
I'm glad that you brought that up. So yes, I was in front of a customer and we were having a meeting and I kind of touched on a few things that they thought were no longer relevant, the folks in the data center. And I pulled my computer up and pulled up the drop-down from HG Data and showed that as of 2 months ago, it's up and running, right? And not only that, there were about 10 or 15 other things going that the folks in the data center had no clue about. And so first they were freaked out a little bit, and basically what I said is, look, obviously there's some things going on with line of business folks within your company that they're going to other places, for help. And so it kind of highlighted to them that maybe there's things that they could be doing a little bit differently to kind of consolidate and bring that back in-house to try to regain some control. But Chris, thank you for bringing that up. And folks, this is a powerful tool. And while you can't show the BlueMine competitive intelligence data to your customers, you certainly can show them the HG Data dropdown, and it might make for some interesting business discussions.
I think this is very, very powerful. When I first looked at it, I was amazed that we have this information, and, that's the great company we work for. We have tools like this. I will tell you, Wes, I had to have a little patience when I installed it. There's a bunch of steps and installation. So just have patience and, reach out to the folks that, that support this tool, because once you get it installed and start playing with it, you're gonna be hooked. It's a really cool tool.
Folks, this is Liliana. Before you advance to the ISV topic, would you comment, business partners may not be able to have, obviously, access to BlueMine. Could you comment on how they can get HD data?
Absolutely. So earlier in the session, I showed the links to HD data. It is a free download. So you simply download Google Chrome. You download Google Chrome Email Hunter. You download the plugins from Google Chrome Email Hunter into LinkedIn. And then finally, you download HD data. And Chris, to your point, there are the number of steps. It can be a little hokey. I know we had to go back and forth on getting some of these things set up, but hey, it works and it's free and it's accurate. That's about all you can ask for, right? So business partners are certainly welcome to use any of this information, and I highly encourage them to do so, to help drive sales in their territory. So moving on, as I kind of had hinted at earlier, we're going to have a lot of new ISV offerings coming to the market. Right, it's a very interesting time. I've been spending a lot of energy developing and growing our ecosystem around open power. And what I'd like for you to give some thought to is, how might you align that specific ISV or that specific sales play with customers in your territory? Who's your target audience? How does that target audience and those pain points overlap with the customer personas that Chris talked about earlier? Right, because you're going to be talking to different folks about different topics, and making yourself relevant is key to not just becoming white noise.
So taking the HD data, I went to an account, I searched, and I saw that they were using MongoDB. Perfect example of now we've got these ISV solution partners. They have software that runs on Power. And the advantage that we have is that their software screams on Power. So the sales rep at Mongo, the sales rep at Hortonworks, the sales rep at Kinetica, and all these other partners, they are interested in their solution performing the best. And I'll give you an example. So I am new to IBM, although I've been around the block for a while, and I came over from Hortonworks. And the first answer a Hortonworks sales rep would say when a customer says, well, what systems and what services you put it on, they're going to say, oh, it's commodity hardware. It's low cost. You just add them in, and it's real simple and not expensive. But what I've learned is that after about a year of installation running Hortonworks, they typically run into constraints. They typically run into performance issues. Take SAP HANA, same scenario. Take Teradata. These applications that are starting to get into production that are running for 18 months, now they've got to step into cluster tuning or performance. So your first answer should be, don't spend $100,000 on professional services to tune your cluster. Put it on Power, because you'll get a 3x improvement right out of the gate. So I think the ISVs are a real interesting new approach that we've got to embrace. So we've got to go to the MongoDBs and say, let's go to a meeting, and the topic will be MongoDB. So let's go in with them, and then at the end, we say, let's put it on Power. So it'll get us new conversations. It'll get us hot topics and techniques. Take Neo4j, a graph database. I never knew what a graph database was until I saw one. Holy cow. Every company should have one. And the great thing is it runs on Power. They have to install it on a server. Let them know that Power is the best server to install it. So in summary, I just think that the ISVs are a great new approach, new angle to, one, understand better relationships in the accounts that you have, two, to understand what technologies, so you could go in there armed with a really great conversation out of the gate.
Chris, wonderful points. So moving on to the next slide, and this is kind of a extension of the last. It's all about what ISVs are you targeting, what workloads are you targeting, what solutions do we have that are far and away more performant on power, right? What things can we replace? What things are complementary to what they have today? And how can we map that again, back to the customer persona and the types of challenges that they might be having, right? And again, I keep beating this drum, but we have to make ourselves more relevant today, more so than ever. Customers have less time, less head count, less budget to throw at some of these things. So we really have to focus on not only performance on power, but also how does that performance on power translate to business problem resolution and hard dollar savings, right? We should be looking for those opportunities where the business value makes the cost of the hardware and software seem like a drop in the bucket. And I love this old cartoon where the customer basically says, I don't have time to see any crazy salesmen. I have a battle to fight. Well, by making yourself relevant and coming in with the right points, it makes it a lot easier to show the customer how we're really changing the game, and especially with things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and GPU accelerated ISV solutions. We're able to now do things with a fraction of the upfront cost and ongoing cost that traditional database systems or what have you would be able to provide.
So Wes, I do love that little capture, right? And you had a stat about Fortune, was it 500, 5,000 companies?
Yep. So, the point there was simply that, since the year 2000, 52% of Fortune 500 companies that were on that list in the year 2000 are no longer around. And, you might ask me, Wes, why is that the case? Well, it's because things are changing, right? Data is becoming more and more important. Companies have to adapt to changing market trends and new competitors, right? It led to the term Uberization, which basically implies a company coming in with an entirely different business model, a whole new way of doing things that just flattens you, right? We're seeing that more and more these days with advances in technology, and so customers have a lot more pressure to do things and to respond to initiatives that they weren't necessarily asked to think about even 5 years ago. So
I would say that the 48% of new companies on that list are data-driven companies, and those are the companies that we've got to find. We've got to find them early, and we've got to go right to their executives and make sure that they know that we can help them with that battle. So I thought that was an interesting stat.
Now, that's a wonderful point. And, the customers that we're going after are the customers where performance matters. Customers that are working with, hot data, things, feedback from sensors and the Internet of Things, and, doing real-time analytics and doing very complicated queries that before were not even possible, right? Things that it would take a NASA or, federal government to solve, right? And huge server farms. Now today we're starting to see those capabilities in GPU-enabled cognitive servers. So I totally agree with you. It's all about finding those use cases, finding things that are relevant, and helping customers to stay ahead of their competition and helping them to continue to innovate. So in circling back to making yourself more relevant and the information that you can glean from HT data, I guess something that I'd recommend is putting some thought into how you can take a look at a customer's install base, how you can take a look at the customer personas, how you can consider how some of the competitors in the market might be doing things, to start to come up with very pointed questions that will be impactful and help to drive better open-ended conversations, right? So is the customer running Hadoop? Do they think it's slow? Probably, right? Is the customer running HBase, Hive, Kafka, Cassandra, Spark? Are they getting the most out of that? They probably don't know for sure. Are they having problems mitigating their skills gaps? Most likely. As Chris had touched on earlier, if they have an installation of Cloudera or Teradata, did it live up to all the promises that that you were given when you signed up to do this? Are you having problems with that solution at scale? Is it doing everything that it promised that it would? And if not, are there complementary solutions that we can bring to bear that can help to, I guess, address some of the ill-fitted aspects of that solution? So moving right along, and Chris had really kind of touched on a couple of these things, but it's not just about cost. It's also about, where are the performance issues? What's the business value that's associated? Why do these performance issues exist? And Chris, you kind of touched on a couple of things before in some previous conversations about things you ran into while you were with Hortonworks and the types of things that you do going into a sales call and types of challenges that you knew going in the door that you gained some traction with the customer by bringing up.
Yeah, I just think it's about general knowledge, right? I mean, using HD data, understanding, what their entire 98% of their technology landscape is, then looking at the partners, then picking up the phone and calling the partners, asking them about their experiences, asking them who did this and who do they have relationships with. It's just about really preparing yourself with advanced research so that when you reach that person, you have that conversation, you've got a clear, crafted message. And it's just, I'm amazed at some of these tools that we have access to. It's great. You couple that with LinkedIn, oh my gosh, it's great.
Thank you for that. And kind of to recap, and we touched on this before, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the net is customers are being asked to do things and they're faced with new challenges that they didn't necessarily have to deal with even just a few years ago, right? A lot of companies are bringing on a lot of new IT initiatives that are complex. They seem overwhelming, right? Artificial intelligence, for example, there's a lot of companies that will sell you piece parts of an AI solution, right? But that's kind of like, that kind of reminds me of like needing to purchase an automobile for your transportation purposes, but instead you're ordering all the parts offline and then building it at home in your own garage, which is inherently risky. Right? IBM is uniquely positioned to bring services to bear, to bring other things to the table to help ensure customers that are successful with some of these projects. And that's something that I really think that we need to remind customers of and why we're so dominant in this space. If you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right, for advanced software, analytics, and artificial intelligence, IBM is right in that top corner, right? We're a leader, and I think it's important that we remind customers that, that's the case.
So, Wes, I had a conversation with somebody, and we were just going back and forth about artificial intelligence, and we kind of came up with this. Do you know which companies artificial intelligence will be important to? And the answer was any company that has customers. All right, that's all of them, right? So think about the customer service relationship that the brand, the company must maintain. They have to provide better customer service when you call in and when you reach out to that company. So through artificial intelligence and machine learning, the customer experience is getting stronger, and frankly, every company has to do it or else they're going to die. So I couldn't agree with you more that there is not a single company on the planet that is better positioned on artificial intelligence, and it will apply to every single company.
That's a wonderful point. That's a wonderful point. To that end, as we move on to this slide, let's think about, and as a team, let's concentrate on the types of messages that we want to deliver, what aspects of cognitive are going to be relevant to what customer personas, what types of things do we want to talk to them about, what types of things are relevant within their market vertical, what are their competitors doing, what are we hearing in the streets. I think that'll help to make us even more relevant and to make our business results that much greater. So as much as I hate folks and salespeople leveraging email templates, sometimes it's a necessary evil. There's certain aspects of the message that maybe is a bit canned. As much as possible, I'd really recommend avoiding this when you can, but certainly if you're reaching out to many customers, at some point there's certain elements of the message that can't be newly crafted each time. All right, so here's just a quick list of some best practices that you might consider. I know this is kind of sales 101, but it doesn't help to sometimes reiterate. So moving right along, and Chris touched on this earlier, and I loved it, which was think about the customer persona and how that ties to the type of collateral or sales content that they might respond to. We're finding more and more that customers don't want to read red books or white papers as much as they used to. Maybe the deeply technical customers do, but by and large, most not so much. I mentioned earlier that customers today are doing more research than ever before they're even willing to pick up a phone and talk to a salesperson, right? So in an effort to try to react to that, I just wanted to make mention of a few things that you could be doing yourself right at home for little or no money to help drive better results in your territory. Maybe that's developing new elevator pitches and value props that you record via, say, WebEx video, right, and you send out to your customer. Or maybe you post it on your LinkedIn page. Or maybe you create your own infographic or you make your own chart, right, to send out to a customer that helps compel them and helps them to understand why they should take your call. You can even come up with a custom chart or a custom graphic that's tied specifically to their install base. I mean, you can't get any more relevant than that, right? So it's kind of come up with these creative things to help open doors.
So Wes, I'm going to give you a little advanced preview into a campaign that we're going to run pretty soon, utilizing Neo4j. So this build a custom image chart that you could go out and present to a customer. We're going to be able to do that in the next couple of months. But Neo4j has a great capability to build that picture. And if we could resonate that and we could carry that through as a new approach to get a conversation, we're going to be doing stuff like that. So it's advanced, and it's going to open doors.
That's very exciting. I love that. I love that. And I highly encourage other folks to do it as well. And if you need any help or pointers, please feel free to reach out to Chris and I. We can certainly help you along the way in your journey. Now, moving on, I'm going to breeze right through this. I just want to give a quick example of how to go about putting these tools together to actually get a sales call going. So this example is with Coca-Cola. In the years past, I've covered Coca-Cola for a number of years. Sold them a ton of, AIX Big Iron. But anyway, the example here is, I basically took a certain play. In this case, it was SAP HANA. And IBM has a very compelling story to tell around performance on power for SAP HANA. We're the fastest for customers where performance matters, bar none. IBM's the answer. So in going out to Coca-Cola's main landing page, you can see I leveraged HD data, which is a little wave emblem at the very top. Opened up the app and started scrolling through their software stack. Well, right here at the top, I can see at least a handful of different SAP products that they have installed. Probably not a big surprise. So moving right along, I started doing some research as to who was working on projects around SAP HANA within Coca-Cola, within one of the many business units that they have, to try to figure out where would I like to go start a conversation. So by using LinkedIn Sales Navigator and other LinkedIn searches, I was able to kind of drill down to who I might want to go talk to. So moving right along, got a list. I did many searches. I tried a number of different things. We have Coca-Cola company, the marketing arm. You have Coca-Cola Enterprises. You have Coca-Cola Bottling Company. There's all kinds of different subgroups, but for this particular group, I focused on the group located in downtown Atlanta with Coca-Cola proper. Moving right along. So I found a customer that had mentioned some things in his LinkedIn profile about a SAP HANA project, and he had posted some things on LinkedIn about SAP HANA and some other databases that he was looking into. Found this to be very interesting. And so I reached out to Marcus, and in my note just kind of made mention of the fact that I have some history with the account, and that I was interested to find out what kind of projects they might be working on, to see how I might be able to help, and work to make myself relevant, right? So not just a stranger, not a cold call, but I specifically targeted him with some relevant information about projects that were in his wheelhouse that, I wanted to discuss. So in this next slide, you see Marcus responded. He gave me some feedback. Based on the feedback I got from Marcus, it directed me to another group, which is head up by a customer named Paul Creamer. So right then and there, I knew to reach out to Paul to set up a meeting and, leverage the kind of handoff from Marcus to get over to Paul. And that's exactly how it's done. Right, and it's got to be something that you do on a regular basis and that you track and stay organized with your sales activity. And this is an example of how I organize some of my sales contacts and opportunities and work that throughout the quarter. And if you do an effective job of managing these contacts, the plays that you're going after, the type of customer personas you want to target, and the type of messaging that you want to deliver to those folks, what you'll find is you'll be able to start to cover a lot of different customers very quickly. So in this example, in 30 or 40 minutes, I was able to reach out to all these customers with very specific messages about things that they were currently working on. And I find that to be very impactful and a good use of my time. So, in wrapping up, Chris, were there any other comments or thoughts that you'd like to share on some of the things that we discussed today?
Sure. So I am so impressed with this opportunity that we have with this company that we work for, that we can go with confidence to any executive, any VP, any technologist, and carry a meaningful discussion. So I would like to challenge everybody on the phone right now with their target accounts to nurture 10 new relationships in those accounts with people that have never bought IBM in the past. Find the data scientists. Find the recent college grads. It's amazing how the tools that we have today, the knowledge that we can compile together to create a point of view and then educate our customers, educate them with information on how cognitive can make a difference in their job and can make a difference in their career. And I challenge you, if you have 10 of those, I guarantee you your revenue in that account will go up. So Wes, I'm thankful for all the insight that you shared and all the stuff that I've learned from you over the last couple of months and just pulling this all together. But I think, Wes has always been there to help. He's got a lot of information, but it really comes down to getting tactical, getting these tools in your hands, having you use them, and let's go have fun with it because we've got the best intelligence in the marketplace. We can carry the best discussion, and we can make a difference in people's lives and careers through this cognitive journey. So thanks for everything that you've done, Wes.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who attended today. And I'd just like to say good luck and good selling.
All right, and before we go, this is Liliana. We do have a couple of questions. You two are wonderful to listen to, and we have some very good comments about people finding the materials that you have shared and the very tactical discussion very helpful to them. So that's the good news. And thanks, folks, who have entered questions. So here's the first one. IBM and other companies tend to, and this is very technical, have recommended that folks use primarily Firefox, and a lot of what you're looking at for HG data is based on Google Chrome, if I could say. I know that has not been an issue, but could you talk to that in terms of using Google Chrome and the different apps that go on top of it?
Yeah, so you are going to have to download Google Chrome to make these tools and apps function properly. Google Chrome Email Hunter was built on Google Chrome, so especially for more recent editions and versions, you're going to have to download that as a browser. You can certainly use it as a secondary if you prefer other browsers, but I would highly recommend going ahead and downloading that and leveraging that because you're going to have a cleaner, more seamless experience, and then, frankly, some of the additional tools and apps aren't currently supported on some of these other search engines.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, we're still on that topic of the apps. Would you just clarify, I know BlueMine is an IBM tool, it's open to IBMers only, And there's certainly a way for business partners to get access to HE data and just use paste some of the steps earlier. But if someone says, gee, I'd like to have access to some of that good data that you can get through Bluemine, could they work with their IBM counterparts to get to some of that?
Yes, I mean, of course, there are certain restrictions from business conduct guidelines and what have you. But if you team up with your IBM rep and ask about specific things, they can pull together a wealth of information regarding, say, customers in a certain territory or a certain market vertical that have 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or however many specific software packages installed, or maybe where a hardware install base for a competitive solution might currently reside. They can certainly help you to do that, and I would certainly think that your IBM counterparts would be more than happy to help enable you and empower you to go out and make these calls, help support them in their territory.
Wonderful, thank you. One of the questions that came in for those IBMers who are not familiar with Bluemine, it is in W3 and it's pretty quick to get to it, but Wes, if folks are looking to see, I know you guys both mentioned it might be a little kludgy to get Hunter and to link it with Bluemine and to link it with all of the other tools. Do you have a reference document or anything that folks could use, or should they give you a call?
Today, they probably just give me a call. All the links are at the very beginning of the presentation. Certainly working through it. It took a little time. Chris and I worked through when we were first setting up his system. We could certainly do one-off calls, but if there's enough demand, we'd be happy to create another video to walk people through a step-by-step play as to how to get these tools up and running.
Wes, I remember when I was installing it, there's some steps where you get an email sent to you, you have to click on that email, and then that once you clicked on it, it wouldn't open up properly in Notes. So then you had to copy that link and then open it up in Google. So there are a couple kludgy things, but I thought you had some documentation on it, but whatever. But just reach out to Wes or I, and we can help.
Okay, you guys, thank you very much. And I think that's on slide 4. If you don't mind just showing it, Wes, that may be good so folks know where it is. Okay, so a couple of questions that came in had to do with personas. And as folks are focused on cognitive applications, you share some of the personas that you have looked at, and you mentioned, Chris, some of the names that people could use maybe in their search. And I know scientific computing or data scientist or applications engineer, some of those, or machine learning, some of those maybe, I don't know if they're personas, but certainly titles that people can use. Are there others that you might mention?
So here's what I did, and I am going to add to that list. I don't have it complete yet, but here's what I did. I found this ideal person, this data scientist that was like, oh my gosh, this person's the greatest one ever. I then went to looked at their LinkedIn profile, and I looked at their technologies and the things that they have in there, and then I just copy and pasted and started looking for additional ones. So, you could certainly do that by just finding your ideal candidate, looking at them, and then you'll find things. I mean, it would be great if you searched on TensorFlow, right? That's part of our Power AI offering. Well, then that obviously is a straight-on hit. So look at the technologies. Look at our ISV partners. Look in their profiles for software and hardware and technology solutions that are familiar within the stack that we have. But to your point, I will be expanding that persona list, and I will be adding searchable items. I just haven't completed that just yet.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And some of the ones that you mentioned and I just mentioned are pretty good ones. Wes, you're showing slide 4, which is really helpful because those are the places where folks need to go to download the different apps. Is that correct?
That is.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Here's one more question, and this may have to do with For business partners, it would be LinkedIn Premium, and for IBMers who have licenses, it would be Sales Navigator as a corporate equivalent product. But what's the best way to get email addresses and contact information for folks as you have been working? I know you use Email Hunter, but as you work through LinkedIn, where do you typically look for that information? Or do you just go ahead and use InMail, for example?
So Wes, I'll add my 2 cents and then you finish it up. So trial and error. I mean, you find one email address at PepsiCo, you understand that their nomenclatures are first initial, last name. And then all of a sudden you start targeting companies like Amazon, where they mess you all up, where it's last name, then the first 2 initials of their name at the bottom. It's trial and error, right? I mean, it's find one, replicate it, send 3 emails, and 2 of them will bounce back. That's what I've done.
Chris, I mean, that's exactly it, right? Sales is not an exact science by any stretch of the imagination, right? I think everyone on the phone knows that, right? So, that's exactly some of the things that I do. Some of the things that I've found that have been helpful is that, once you have the plugin hooked up correctly, you'll have that orange box that populates underneath the customer's picture. Right? You click that box, and when Google Chrome Email Hunter comes back, it's going to not only give you an email address, but then there's a confidence interval above that as to how accurate Google believes that email address to be. Right? And it usually ranges between somewhere in the 50% range to the, say, 96% range. But the net is that if you send them an email and it bounces back, obviously you got the wrong one. But by learning the customer's email nomenclatures, you can usually within a guess or two figure it out. So that's typically what has seemed to work.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I think that covers the majority of the questions. Wes, in closing, I do have a question for you. Is how much time do you spend? Is this part of a day in the life of Wes as you have changed in how you approach your territory coverage and your hunting for new prospects, if you will? Could you comment on that? How are you making this part of your life versus a special project, if you will?
Sure. I would say it's pretty heavily involved, right? In some accounts, customers may be willing to give you a warm introduction or transfer to someone in a certain line of business, but in many cases, they might not. There might be political reasons for them not doing that, right? There could be a variety of different things. In fact, maybe some of the data center, customers who we know and love, who have been selling AIX and mainframe and enterprise class storage to for decades, they may not necessarily know about all the hot new initiatives and projects that some of these folks might be working on. So what I found is it's a combination of leveraging your existing contacts, right? Leveraging sales opportunities that we already kind of have in play, researching to find out who's doing what, and sometimes just being bold enough to ask the customer if they could introduce you to a very specific person within a specific business organization, but not by any means waiting for them to walk us in there, in parallel, also doing the same type of activities that Chris and I discussed today with reaching out to people, breaking the ice, and making yourself relevant, walking in the door with pointed things to talk to that customer about that are probably sore points or things that they need help with.
Great, thank you. And Chris, the same question for you.
Wow, you put me on the spot. No, I'm just joking. You know what? So I'm a sales manager. We're creating this new team, and we're focusing a lot on identifying 10 new relationships in the target accounts we go after. So ever since I've gotten this tool, I would say I have used it probably 4 out of the 5 days a week, mainly when I'm doing research on targeting companies. And it's fascinating. It's almost addictive. It's like you can hit any website, like ESPN, anything. I mean, it's crazy. So I think that that tool is a really hot tool, and it becomes addictive, and it is a lot of my preparation as I'm preparing for my target accounts and sales planning.
Great, thank you. That's great to hear. And I am an advocate of social selling, and I think it's a great, fun way to learn about your customers even before you actually approach them. It helps you in terms of learning about the accounts, learning about what they're doing, even before you say, I need to go start approaching them. So something we all very much focus on recommending for folks to make part of how they do business. I think we are now at the point where we say thank you very much to those of you participating. It's wonderful to have your engagement via the questions. And thank you to the many of you who joined us today. And Wes and Chris, thank you so much for being our speakers, and to Stuart for being our sponsor and opening the call. Mike, thanks to you for hosting. And I think we are done, unless, Stuart, you have any comments?
I just wanted to echo what you said. I want to thank Wes and Chris. That was absolutely fantastic. Really well done, guys, and greatly appreciated. And our thanks to all those who attended, took time out of your busy Fridays near the end of the quarter. So also one last reminder for everybody, be looking for Liliana does publish a list of upcoming cognitive boot camps. They are open to IBMers and business partners. They've been extremely well attended and extremely well received. We're going to have one a month starting next month all the way through November, okay? Or actually the latter part of October. So be looking for those, and wherever you possibly can, get to one and get your peers to one, okay? Other than that, thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Stuart. Sorry. The next one is on the 7th, and it will have to do with POCs and benchmarking, something that we all really want to do in our accounts at times. Folks, thank you very much. I think we are back to you, Mike.